Hi friends, welcome back to the channel, 1824 Walker Farmhouse. I start this video on Saturday. It was Hug a Sheep Day. Our friend Sarah from the Crazy Sheep Lady, I met her on Instagram and she started years ago a Hug a Sheep Day, and now it's national and it's become international. So we like to we like to celebrate that day and we make a holiday out of it. I have a video on it last year. We went really way out doing pumpkins and giving them the inside of the pumpkins. But today we're giving them extra treats. And Dave's bringing them out some animal crackers and more hay. And so we did celebrate Hug a Sheep Day. My family came for the weekend, and it was really nice to have them here. And then they went down and they were celebrating Hug a Sheep Day. And as you might guess, Oliver, well, he really wanted to be in all the pictures, part of the family. He wanted lovin's. There's my granddaughter. He came right over to them. Like when I tell you he's like a dog, I really mean he's like a dog. He just follows us everywhere. And now, whether we have animal crackers or not, he just loves people. And when I was taking this picture of my daughter and her family, look at Oliver. He came over and he wanted to be in the picture too. We celebrated my grandson's ninth birthday. I can't believe he's 9 already. And they went out for the day on Saturday. And then Dave and I decided at the last minute that we'd go for the day too. And we went walking graveyards. Did you ever do that? As a young kid, I have fun memories actually of cemeteries. When we were old enough, our parents would let us walk up to the cemetery. It's probably about 7 or 8 blocks from my house. I lived in town, and we would love to go and look at the names. And our parents always said, "Now make sure you don't trample on the grave lots, and it's hallowed ground, and be quiet and respectful." And so we learned early on what a cemetery is. And I think I learned how to do math in the cemetery. My friends and I would always figure out, the birth date and the death date. And they didn't always say like how old they were when they passed away. So we would always figure out the ages. When I got into genealogy, I went looking at cemeteries for the gravestones, and lo and behold, I found the walkers in this one that I used to walk as a kid, always looking for the grave markers and who they were. And oh, we would say that's so and so's relative. And then, I used to help my mom decorate the graves. And mom and I would walk around and look for people that we knew that had passed away. And then as a young adult, I used to like just to take my walks in the cemetery. I would just even go up and down the roads by them. And so I don't know, I just had this connection. And I like graveyards, or cemetery, whichever you call. I guess the graveyard was usually called, the yard right beside the church. And cemeteries are sort of bigger and public. But I was excited when we found these walkers and saw in the one grave Oliver that he indeed was a musician in the Civil War. So, just a little tidbit about myself. I am a retired business manager of a church, and I was in charge of 2 cemeteries. And I would have to help come find the grave lots, and we had the burials here. It's an old cemetery. And I got a magazine, I can't remember, it was one of the country magazines or uh, an early American one. And there was an article. And I believe that this is about the article. I was excited when I saw this. It looks like a tree stump. And it was a fraternity order. And it was created so people could afford insurance. And it was called Woodmen of the World. And with your insurance policy, you received a tombstone. And they were all like in the shape of trees, logs, nature. There's a cow lily, the bottom of these two logs with a tree stump. I absolutely love this. I think it's really neat, and it tells a story, as all cemeteries do. I think you could do, a 1-hour program on cemeteries, the mausoleums, when they went out of style, what tombstones were in style. If you go back to the early 1800s, those tombstones, the earliest one is in Massachusetts. I like to look, when I'm walking a cemetery, I like to look for the early ones. I notice there's some that have lambs on them, and usually that was a child. And to the cemeteries in our area, there was a section that was just for the people that passed away of the 1918 flu pandemic. And they thought then that the germs would come up from the ground, and they would dress in a couple layers of clothing and bury them and run, I was told. And it was just in one section, and nobody went in that section. And here's one. This cemetery has a lot of them, with the lamb on top, and that was usually children. And this child only lived for 3 years. And then this one has also, this looks like this was done later, which sometimes that was the case. And he only lived a couple years also. Another interesting tombstone, I think, is when there's a picture on it. Is there a daughter? That's neat. Here's another one that the cover's off, but it's really lasted long. It has an infinite prog. I notice some cemeteries are religious, some aren't. There's religious sections. Some are by ethnic, Italian sections, Polish sections. I had a friend that lived by a Irish church, and the cemetery right beside it was all Irish names. And here's a baby again with the lamb. Then I saw this. I thought this was, look how sweet, with their pictures. Now look at this. That's 1927, and that's been on there since 1927. I think that's amazing. Years ago when I was in the cemetery, I think this is one of my relatives. My great-grandmother's maiden name was Lestrange, but this beside it was like one of my absolute favorite tombstones. I love urns. This person was in the Revolutionary War. I think I'm going to have to look into this. I do think it's a relative of mine. I just absolutely love the face of it. You know, some cemeteries, they have beautiful, there's Allegheny Cemetery down in Pittsburgh. It has the most beautiful tombstones and early tombstones and mausoleums. And so Dave's over there with my family that are the Kellys. So let me know in the comments, I'm curious. This isn't preserving history, but it is, because you learn about your family. We just went and saw Dave's relatives. I have my dad's relatives in this cemetery at St. Mary's in Freeport. I love cemeteries. I've walked cemeteries for years. I'm curious, do you walk cemeteries? Have you looked into your family genealogy? Okay, this tombstone, what is it? Aluminum?
No, I don't think. I think it's some kind of metal.
Well, we think it was redone. There's a really, really, really old one there, and over here, it's gone, and some of the old tombstones are gone. But this was my relative, and they came from County Donegal in Ireland in the year 1832. So we were sort of laughing, though. We don't know the birth date right on here, but it says aged about 65 years when Patrick passed. So we thought this was interesting, and just the metal was interesting. We never seen any.
Never saw one. I
No.
never saw the about before either.
No. Now this one's interesting. They were standing up and fell down. But it looks like there's an angel and wings and like a door, maybe with a bird on top. We like this one. It looks like a shield. Here's some more that fell down. But I'm glad they have them and that they're here. Oh, I might have to go down another rabbit hole of looking into the Lestrange family, which was my great-grandmother's maiden name. So that is interesting. Boy, this is a nice tombstone. Really like a monument. Born in the county of Cork, Ireland. Is on the front, David Casey. Look at that. That's like really neat. And really, this is nothing compared to the ones in the Allegheny Cemetery. Okay, Dave's calling this the Irish section because they have all what counties they were born in Ireland on the tombstones. Now there's a cemetery right beside a cemetery. And they got some nice obelisk in here. This cemetery is Brooklyn Cemetery. It's in the township where I live. It was established in 1830, but many of the local historians believe that it was an Indian burial grounds before it was even any bodies were put in here and it was established. And they were buried on mounds or hills, so it makes it very believable, although I don't know if it's in writing anywhere. Right across from there, about a half mile as the crow flies, there was a huge Indian lookout spot, and I guess that is in writing that they could see the whole way to Pittsburgh and if people were coming up the river or not. And Pittsburgh's 20 miles away, so that was pretty far. Not long ago, an elderly man had told me that when his dad bought some property, it was 100 years ago, that there was an Indian plot on the land, and there was stones like just piled on top of where the Indian was buried. So I did not know that. I think it's interesting how graveyards came to be, and there's like a lot of history with them. Brooklyn Cemetery certainly has its own history. There are lots of Civil War burials here, and it also had a log cabin church, and it was one of the stopping places for runaway slaves. And one of the runaway slaves got ill on the way, stopped here at the church, and the minister's wife was there, and he literally died in her arms. And there is a tombstone in the cemetery in honor of that runaway slave and acknowledging the log cabin church being an underground railway. Well, you never know what you'll see in a cemetery, like this dolphin. When I saw this tombstone, it reminded me of my grandparents. Theirs says "Together Forever" too on their tombstone, and they're buried in a public cemetery. It's not a graveyard beside a church, but there's a Catholic section. And my grandmother's Catholic, and my grandfather was Episcopalian, and so they're right on the line. She's on the Catholic side, and right across the line, he's on the Episcopalian side. So I just thought that was always, well, let's say different. Okay, so we're still in Brooklyn and cemetery, but this one caught our eye.
This guy's a Chevy guy. Got the bow tie on there, Mr. and Mrs. Snyder. And underneath, you can't read it too well, but it says, "Drive fast, take chances."
Oh, jeez. So, do you want to John Deere on yours? And I have a sheep.
I have to think about it.
And here's this one too, with the Chevy bow tie. So there's starting to be modernization on the tombstones. I'm also one of those ones that when I go to the cemetery, I talk to the people that are buried there. And this is the Steeles, who are neighbors and good friends. And Jeannie Steele is where I bought my first sheep, and she was a big mentor of mine. I just loved her, and she was so good to me when I moved in. She brought me pie and would come and visit and sit on my porch and talk about farming and all things shepherdess. And I think what's so neat about it is this is a Steele farm, and so she's buried overlooking her farm. The day that she was buried, there's a bagpiper here. It was a graveside ceremony, and he played for a long time. And when I went home, he was still playing, and I could hear the bagpipes. They were all through the valley. Sorry, a little bit about some of the audio while we were traveling. Some of these cemeteries, it's sort of on the road, hear the cars, so sorry if I sound a little muffled. You know, you'll never know what you find in a cemetery. And I think one of the greatest finds that we found is when I got into the Walker genealogy, and I thought, let's go look for where their graves are. And look at this. We found my great 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 grandfather's grave. I'm not sure who was more excited, myself or Dave. We were just so excited. I mean, Dave moved this man's son's house to our property. We feel a connection with the Walkers. And here it had right on the tombstone that John Hogue Walker was at the crossing of the Delaware River in 1776 and at Valley Forge in 1777. He was his quartermaster and wagon master, and we were just in awe. So I encourage you, if you get into family genealogy, go looking for some of the tombstones and see where they were buried. So I'd like to encourage you, if you get into family genealogy, to go out and look for their graves, their tombstones, because you just never know what you're going to see. I'm curious, did you know about the Woodmen of the World, and to have separate lots for when the pandemic was going on in 1918? And I'd just like to encourage you to just go out and look into your family history. You'll never know what you'll see in a cemetery. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you real soon.